Hello. Hello.
Here we go. Confidence Conversations with Idara. And today, the confidence conversation is with Dr. Nnenna Kalu Makanjuola, who I will be calling Nnnena or Kalu moving forward, because that's what I've always called you. Kalu, it's so great to have you on this conversation. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I'll do my own intro before handing off to you. So now it's all about Radiant Health Magazine. Let me get mine into view here. This is the latest copy. And I feel like every every issue you have resonates in some way, but this is the current title, and we'll talk about this issue because it's the self-care issue. So you're the editor in chief and founder of Radiant Health Magazine. My association with you, of course, goes as far back as secondary school, but also your career as a pharmacist, your career in public health with the CDC, World Health Organization, international experience in healthcare, and of course, most recently, publisher of a health magazine with a focus on African women in the diaspora. African women and African women in the diaspora. All of these very powerful things. And of course, alongside being friend, I've been a long-standing admirer of the things that you have accomplished time and again. It's so, so good to be able to sit down to this conversation with you. But I'll let you introduce yourself as well to the audience, Kalu.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me and for having me on your podcast. It's so wonderful to see you expanding and going in this direction. And of course, nobody that knows you will be surprised that you're doing a confidence podcast. So, so thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me. And so yes, as you already mentioned, my name is Nnnena Kalu Makanjuola, and I am a mom to two amazing humans, a wife to a wonderful man, and I'm also the founder and publisher of Radiant Health Magazine, which is a health and wellness magazine dedicated to the Black woman. Um, in my previous life, I was a practicing pharmacist. I also had a career in public health.
Yes. And it took you international too. That's one of the things about it. A lot of times we kind of go from job to job. There's plenty to do right where we live, but you also had an international component to the work that you did as well. But before going further into the talk about confidence, one of the reasons why I mentioned that this particular issue resonates is it's a self-care issue. And I'm curious to know a little bit more about what led to this particular topic. But a big component of confidence, when I'm talking to people about rebuilding their confidence, because a lot of the conversations are with people or people have had circumstances where their confidence has been impacted, negatively impacted, things chipping away at their confidence, and it's rebuilding and tapping into self. Self-care is a big part of that, reconnecting, going to sort of ground. What was it that led to this particular issue being a self-care issue?
Yes, obviously the world has changed in the last 2 years,
Mhm.
and it seems to be in much more turmoil than we've ever known it. And so, with all the time that we've spent by ourselves, it's been a time of self reflection. And also, along with that self reflection, is thinking about now you're stuck, you're stuck by yourself on your own, contemplating your life and wondering, with all the pandemic and everything going on, how do you really care for yourself, not just for the pandemic, but truly building a life that you resonate with, the life that you intended for yourself? Because with all the noise, we tend to forget, but now that we've all been pushed back into our homes, and it's really been a time of self-reflection. So that's what this issue is about, is helping people to reconnect with themselves and to explore the best way to look after themselves,
It's timely.
which will be
It's such a
different for each
relevant,
person. Yeah.
yes, and it's definitely a relevant topic. This one I not only got for myself, but gifted to my friends as well, in case they didn't already know about the magazine and having access to it because of the topic.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thank you
that.
so much. You've always been a wonderful supporter, and I have so many stories to tell, but I will embarrass you in a little bit more.
What's not to support? What's not to support? It's also bragging rights for me, Kalu. This is such great quality and such great content. And I've seen
Thank
you
you.
start, you're welcome, start on so many different things. How would you, I say that segue because it does take a high degree of confidence, especially when it's something that's new. How would you define or describe confidence?
I've had to think about this for a while, knowing that I'll be coming into this conversation. And I mean, it sort of was easy for me to be able to say it, but I had to think about, have I always thought about it this way? So to me, confidence is the courage to be myself and to let others be themselves. You have to let others be themselves, right? So that's it for me in a nutshell. I often write, I want to be the meest me I can be, so that pursuit of being myself and having the courage to be me is for me what I call confidence. And it hasn't always been so. It takes life experiences to come to that conclusion, which is what it was for me. I also wonder sometimes with confidence, right? When people say confidence, they're thinking about sort of the outward display, right? What people see on the outside. But how do you yourself truly imbibe, a life of confidence? So that's why just having that courage to be myself is the utmost definition for me.
It's a great definition, Kalu. And it got me thinking about the two-pronged in terms of confidence. It's the confidence to be you and to let others be themselves. It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's almost as though there's a grace that comes with being confident. The more comfortable and confident you are, then the less likely you are to be reactive to people being themselves. The two
Yeah.
can go hand in hand. So that's a very profound definition, and it encompasses a lot. You also talked about, we think about the outward, and my confidence talk with people is two parts. I talk about the confidence on you and the confidence in you. You haven't heard my confidence talk
Right.
yet, but it's you're spot on with that, because there's an element that it's easy to do the outward facing stuff, and that's good and it's important. But the one in you is the long standing. That's what really matters. That's what you want to have truly boosted and to get you through different components. Can you tell me a time when you have
Absolutely.
been tell me a time when you've had confidence make a difference in your career?
Um, so speaking of, connecting the dot between the outward. So some of the examples I have, it's not that I was necessarily, I might not have felt confident then, but those were confident actions that I took. So I'll give you one example. You already mentioned my work at WHO. I was an intern there in Switzerland. And I don't think you know the story about how I got that position. So I've always been interested in global health, especially non-communicable diseases like heart disease, cancer in low-income countries, because it's a condition that has impacted my family, and that's really what drew me to public health. And so when I was looking for internships, I wanted to work with obviously a well-recognized organization that did work in that area. Back in 2006, nobody was really looking at chronic diseases in low-income countries. Every time you think of Africa, they're still thinking about HIV and all the infectious diseases. But then I found a string of papers that WHO did, and they were talking about non-communicable diseases, and they had a department that was working on that and they were starting to look at non-communicable diseases in low-income countries, including African countries. And I stopped, I just tried to read everything I could. And I ended up writing an email to one of the lead authors of the paper, expressing my interest, how this is really what I've been looking for. I'm fascinated by the studies and the work that they're doing, and would they happen to have an internship opportunity? She wrote me back, and invited me to be an intern with her. Honestly, I couldn't be, so literally that's how I got it. So part of the reason I bring up the story is that, I think confidence is something that also takes a while to mature. And so you don't have to wait until you feel that you're confident before you make confident moves or you take confident actions. So all my peers who were with me, they had to go through an application, because when I was asking other people how they got it, it's like, oh, all this, I got it just by an email. And at one point, even when I was flying there, I started thinking, did she really invite me? Obviously she did, because we had to go through other processes for me to get there. But I use that as an example to tell people, sometimes you just have to make bold moves, even if you don't think that you're ready. So that's one. Another example is starting Radiant. Obviously, I know nothing about magazine. I have no interest. I mean, I don't think I read magazines before starting Radiant. It just wasn't a thing for me. So shifting from, oh, I already moved from pharmacy to public health, and now I'm suddenly saying I'm moving to something else again. That really shook my confidence, And that's one of the reasons I say you've always been my supporter right from the get-go, even before, Radiant became a print publication. I remember many instances where they might seem like nothing to you. I remember an article, I never forget it. You always send me an email. I love the image you used with that. And I remember that article perfectly well. It was a snail image reflecting something about slow. I can't remember. Anyway, but all to say that, it, even your own act of confidence and reaching out to me, it also did something to me, because when you start something new, you're a bit shaky, right? And you're so sensitive to everything, who is responding, who is not responding. If somebody doesn't respond, you build a whole story around it. People are just moving about their normal lives, right? So at some point I feel like I was really angry with my friends because I thought they were not supporting me. But the way you were reaching out to me, there may be like 2 or 3 people that were really always involved. And it's not that you were emailing me every day, but just you had a way of really showing me you were involved. You would send me, oh, I like that article. Every now and then you would just send me a message. But that's one of the things that made me think, wow, I haven't been that friend to other people.
Okay, so we got disconnected there for a moment. We'll just pick up from where you were answering the question. You had started to say, Kalu, how the support that you received from a small group of friends during that time really got you thinking about how you can be a friend to others as well.
Yeah. So it got me thinking about, how often we, in terms of letting others be themselves also, here I was being worried about how other people were not supportive, but then it got me thinking, have I been a supportive friend to other people? Because I'm sure I have friends that have started businesses. I don't really remember reaching out to them, even though I admired what they were doing, but I never said it out to them. So that's the whole idea of confidence to me, that you get to a point where you're being yourself, but you're also not being harsh on other people because you don't know what the circumstances for their own actions might be. Great. So yeah, so that's a point I wanted to make. And when you think of confidence, I feel like there's also a lot of noise now, like, oh, I'm going to be me, I'll drop whatever doesn't serve me. Boundaries, everybody wants boundaries, but as you said, boundaries for yourself, you also have to respect other people's boundaries, because that's been the case where I might have boundaries for myself, but people become upset about it. So if you're setting boundaries for yourself, you also have to be aware that you need to respect other people's boundaries and not put a judgment on it.
That's true. Yeah. And being isolated in varying degrees during the pandemic has probably not exactly helped our social skills. And a lot of times people are making decisions literally in isolation, like in a vacuum. And so they may not have all the pieces. But a couple of things about what you said, I'll comment on before my next question. And one is that I really got into the habit years ago, and it's not quite 100%, but I got into the habit of reaching out to people when they cross my mind for whatever reason, because we're so busy. There's so many things competing for our attention. It's like you think of someone, you don't reach out, and someone you care about. Next thing you know, weeks, maybe even months go by. And sometimes it's timely, they came to my mind for a reason. And so I reach out. So I got into the habit, especially technology, it's so easy. A text if I can't call, but if I can call, I will. And just letting them know I'm thinking of them, ask the question, checking in. And so if something reminds me of you, chances are I'm going to reach out regardless, because it's a way of fostering connection. And in your case, it also helped that you were working on something that was very impactful. It had tremendous potential then, but it was also very thoughtful. You cared about what you were doing, and you were doing it well from the beginning. You were taking no shortcuts, and that really impressed me. It was not about, there was no sign of income anywhere. Anywhere, Kalu, it was all outcome. It was all money going out, but
Yes.
you cared about it. You were
Yes.
talking about color coding in the virtual. Everything's related to this topic. I'm going to make it this color. You were very thoughtful about it, and it was very easy to be impressed and supportive of the quality of work you were doing. The other thing you mentioned was other people are applying, and then I got this thing through a conversation. I will put to you that what came through in your letter in reaching out to that author was your passion, and that you genuinely cared about this thing. Some people wield words very well, but part of what lends my words strength is I believe the words that I'm saying, and it conveys. I'm inclined to think that when you reached out to that person in the world, but the WHO internship that came from it, your passion, your sincerity, and integrity, all of the components that make you came across. So it was not just about, oh, I just reached out to someone. It was all of it that lent your words power and reached out to that person. So there's people having access, but then there's you conveying, which I can see how that would be the case. You talked about it. Okay, sorry.
No, you brought up really good points. I would have to agree. And let me just second the what you said about reaching out to people in real time. That's also another skill that I've learned from you, and it took many years. You've done this consistently. So to all the people listening, this is she's not just saying that. She really does that. And I've started doing that because of you. Because sometimes we think, oh, you feel like you need to wait for a real moment, or oh, she might think, why am I? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Just don't overthink it. Say, hey, how are you? I thought of you today. End of story. Because before you know it, too much time has gone by, and then you're feeling weird about connecting. So, yes, yes, you do have to be sincere when if it's something that you care about, basically.
It comes across.
Once your intention is right, don't let the fear factor hold you back. And there's no guarantee you'll be invited for the interview, but you take your shot when you can.
Yep. Yeah. Intention is a big part of what lends you that power as well.
Yes.
And you made a point that we all know and we go through, and that it's not like you're feeling confident or certain about it all the time. So what have you done in times when you have needed a confidence boost? What is it that you have done or that you do to give yourself that boost or that reminder to take that next action, or just to be confident in that moment? What are your boosts?
So before I answer that, let me also say, I've given 2 instances when I took what seemed like confident actions, but I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't say I was feeling confident when I did it. On the other side, I feel like I've gotten to a point where I'm taking some actions from a confident place, and one of those things, staying on the theme of radiance, is when obviously I had my own ideas when I started out, but I didn't implement many of those because they just seemed odd to people who were listening. I wasn't, no, this is the way it's done, right? And so I tried the way that it's done. And I just got to a point when I decided, I had a conversation with my friend, Nozomi, which is going to tie into how I boost my confidence, which is, one, talk to somebody that you trust. I mean, right now we're doing monthly meetings, but we try to meet regularly. This year we've been very good at least making it monthly. And she's she has her own business. So we really get to talk to each other just about life and business in general. And I was really struggling about doing things that weren't in line with what I wanted to do. And she said, Nnnena, it's your house. Radiant is your house. You treat it like your home. You do what you want to do, you know? And that just changed everything for me, because something was really, really upsetting me, you know? And she said, you don't have to do it. So, and since then, I mean, it doesn't mean that I'm right all the time, but I go with my intuition, and I would rather not succeed doing what I felt I needed to do at the time than trying to do it the way other people are telling me it should be done. Yeah. So, so that's one thing I'm doing now from a place of courage, of confidence, is running it the way I want to, even if it's not typical. So when I need a confidence boost, I do talk to a friend, you know, and preferably you should talk to somebody that you trust and value their opinion, and maybe someone who has also gone down the path of what you're struggling with. So Nozomi has really been a solid support for me in that regard. I love to take long walks. I love to hike. I live in Atlanta. We have really beautiful hiking spots here. So I do love to take long walks. And music can also put you in a, you know, music is, I find it to be very therapeutic. Sometimes it can be very cleansing, you know? If you need to cry, you put your somber music and drive around and cry, you know?
Music and mood.
Yeah, you can connect, you know, whatever emotion you need to connect with that will let you go through the catharsis that you need to go through. So those are my go-to. I do meditate, and I recommend it for everybody, you know, because sometimes there's so much noise going on in your head, you know, and I don't know how people have different ways that they use meditation, but, you know, sometimes for me it could be just to hear those noises. Because sometimes the noise is so loud, you don't really know what it's saying, but it's just like too much chatter. Even if it's not what you want to hear, you're not allowing the words to come through. So sometimes I meditate to just hear it and get it over with, or to calm my mind so I can really, I do go inwards a lot. So it's something that helps me to reflect and really think. And often I get the answer that I'm looking for.
You've given a lot of advice. One of the things that I was going to talk about was just different, not only what you've used, but advice in situation. But by virtue of talking about what you've used, you're also giving advice or recommendations of what you have used in situations that have challenged your confidence. So some of the things that you mentioned just now about the physical activity, walking, getting out, and I think there's something to be said for walking in nature specifically.
Oh, yes.
Which is not the same as walking in a treadmill.
Yes.
Meditation, which also sounds like it will take practice. It's almost like there's a skill to it. You know, it's one thing to be in a quiet place, but when you talk about sorting through the noise and so on, and then of course reaching out to people. So these, your tools, in a manner of speaking, that you have used, they also serve for advice. In a lot of ways, it also sounds as if the more confident you are, then the less likely that you are to make the less dependent you are on your situation. In other words, if you're not confident, you need more certainty. You need more guarantees of the outcome. You know, when you talked about doing something your way that's born of confidence, then it's not like you're necessarily looking for validation from outside. You're going to try it anyway. But if you're not as confident, then you're more likely to be dependent on the outside. And this is not talking about shying away from advice or industry experience, because I sincerely believe that a lot of times people they have best intentions. You know, they're sharing from you from what they believe is the right thing. But if you're feeling confident and tapping into that intuition, that gives you the ability to go for what you believe, even without the guaranteed outcomes. And there's a huge benefit to that.
Yes, yes. It's always good to, I mean, even some of the conclusions that I've come to have been things that some of them, I mean, I remember one in particular that is something that was told to me at a point that I wasn't willing to hear it, you know? So there's definitely value in advice. Sometimes the advice will agree with where you're going. Sometimes it contradicts it as well, but you do have to trust your intuition. And when you find that you're still having conflict, you know, with what you want to do, perhaps you should go your way and test that out.
Test it out, and then you learn. Now you have the experience as well.
Yes, yes.
One of the things, so we've covered the different things that you've done, but one of the things that struck me about your path, and even though you say something like, oh, suddenly with the magazine, it's not been sudden, and yet I recognize that there's a newness to these different paths that you have taken. You know, I tell people that so many of us were supposed to be doctor, lawyer, engineer. Our classes were grouped accordingly. There was room for the accountants because, you know, money. But these were the careers. And then we, you know, found our way through something. So you had the pharmacy component, which of course has a direct connection and is firmly embedded in medicine. It is a big part of how we care for people. And then a focus on public health and global health. You also happen to throw in going to Mount Kilimanjaro, okay, which probably should have been a whole career thing too, and then Radiant Health Magazine. So you were always willing to try something new. You're always willing to try something new. And that's what my next question has to do with. You can elaborate on that, or I can phrase the actual question, but you can comment on that, Kalu. Is that because they're not all the same, but you have that willingness?
They're not. And I don't know where I got that adventurous spirit. I feel like I feel like I can do. I have a sense that if it's something I want to do, that I can do it. Which doesn't mean that it's you know, just because I think that way that it's going to be easy. But if it's something that they're just things that draw me. And once they pull me, I can't help myself, right? I have to test it out. I do have I do have an adventurous spirit. I don't know where that came from, but I'm going to explore it, you know? So it's only when I look back that I think, oh, you know, maybe that was that. When I look back, I can connect how, wow, it seems like I keep doing new things, but in the moment, it doesn't always feel like that.
You just honor the I'll call it an impulse. Impulse might not be the right word, but something comes to you and then you do it. You go with it.
Yeah. I've always wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Don't ask me where that came from. But, you know, what a coincidence that when I did a global health fellowship with the CDC and I was posted to Tanzania. I mean, at that point, I said, I can't leave this country without without getting to the roof of Africa. You know, it just didn't make sense. And so, you know.
And to your point, it's not easy. It's not like this is an easy thing you just roll out. You have to prepare. It's not like you're doing something that you can finish in just a couple of minutes, you know, and you have to follow the guidelines to literally save your life and limbs while you're there.
I mean, that was quite an adventure. I did the 7-day, I think it was 6 or 7 day option. Now I can't remember, but you know, I took the longest option, you know, longest day option I could take, which was the 7-day option. And yeah, it was tough. It wasn't it was not an easy climb, but you feel a sense of accomplishment, even if you're just doing it for yourself, you know, because while I was there were people on day 4, day 5, people coming back down. I'm like, I'm not going to make it this far and come back down. We're going to see that.
We're going to finish. It's amazing. It's incredible, you know, and it's like I'm over here looking at pictures later because there's no way I'm not your Mount Kilimanjaro friend. I'm a lot of things to you, Kalu, but it's not going to be Mount Kilimanjaro. And it does sound like an adventurous spirit, but I suppose for you, it's you. It's your spirit. So it's all relative, you know. it does for my level, it's definitely adventurous, but you honor the calling, whatever it is that you're moved to do.
I do.
And
I
why
do.
not? We
Yeah.
get just this one life. What are we waiting for if we don't do the thing that we moved to do?
Yes, exactly.
And
Yeah.
you obviously
And
have the,
yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, you obviously have the confidence to follow it through. You push past any uncertainty because you're motivated. You've already decided to go on that path and to see it through.
Yes, yeah, I do. I just decide to do it. I don't think about the details because that's where you get, I don't like to think about once I decide I'm doing it, I don't really think about anything else. I just get into it. And so maybe that's sort of been a good strategy for me.
Yeah. So you don't talk yourself out of it. You don't start thinking about the barriers. You just think about your goal.
Nope. I flew there by myself. I mean, I just joined a group. You know, you get to from a group. I joined a group of 6 strangers and we did it.
Incredible. It was amazing then, and it's amazing to hear it again.
Yeah.
So we've talked about all these different things. What's your next bold move?
We've talked a bit about this, and Radiant being I don't know, Radiant feels like a baby to me. And so it's been a struggle to let it go. By letting go, I don't mean by quitting, but I need to, it's my whole emotion. It's like my whole being is absorbed into it. And I think it's time to let it become I think now it's like a teenager that is leaving the house and going to college.
You let it go to college.
Yes, I need to let it go to college. So my next bold move is to sort of assemble a team where I don't need to be, so that it can run without me. I don't need to be directly involved, which, I mean, I guess in some ways it's not that big of a deal, but I think psychologically it's the psychological withdrawal for me.
Yeah.
That's my next move. And then I can explore other things. There are other things I want to do. So
I'm sure. I'm waiting to hear. So you're thinking of it in terms of the transition with Radiant Health, but I know that there's something, which is great. I will be here to hear and find out what that next thing is, and if needed, we'll have another conversation. And pick up from where we've left off on this conversation. But I'm glad
I do have other interests that I'm curious about. So I mean, when things just don't leave you alone, you go test it out. So yeah.
But I like that, and I think that as you settle into yourself and become more you and more confident, then you're more able to clearly hear and follow the calling that's meant for you.
Yes. Yeah. Which, I mean, it's a journey, really. I've heard it said that starting a business is the biggest self-development journey you can go on. That's sort of definitely been the case for me. So it's not, I didn't arrive at this here, and I still feel like I have many more journeys to go, because with each new stage, you have new challenges to conquer.
I can definitely see that starting a business being a journey of self-development.
Yes.
I can definitely. Well, Kalu, I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. Thank you for making the time. Thank you for sharing your story. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm looking forward to the next phase, whatever that next phase will be.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to see what your Entourage Consulting Group is going to, what the future is going to hold for you. You're already doing amazing things. So
Thank you.
I don't have any doubts about what you're going to do. I should say too, probably we should turn the camera back to you.
Okay, now at this point, we did transition because Nnenna did turn the camera around to talk about me. So we switched to a conversation about confidence from my perspective, and it led to another 20 minutes. So please check out part 2 of this confidence conversation with Nnenna. Kalu. Thank you.